welcome to Get Celebritized. I'm your host, Aurea McGarry, where I help you earn more, live more, and give back more by bringing amazing people to my show as my guests that are doing just that are living a big, vivacious life in some way, shape, or form. And maybe they've overcome obstacles. Maybe they have had the experiences that they've had and have opened up nonprofits, or maybe they're just making a whole lot of wonderful income and they're going to come to you and tell you how they did it. What could have stopped them? What didn't stop them? All the nuts and bolts and juicy details to help you all earn more, live big, fat, juicy, wonderful legacy lives so you can give back more to the causes and charities and people that matter most to you. And today we've got a disruptor in the house. We've got Jake Hammond, and he's a recent TEDx speaker. You know, I love the TEDx stages. Absolutely are wonderful creators and idea makers. So we're going to hear about the TEDx. He's a disruptive innovator, an accomplished entrepreneur, an ecosystem builder. He's in the automotive space as well. He's also was a widow in 2016. We're going to talk about that. Founder of some nonprofits, and he's got this amazing quote I just want to bring right to the table right up front. He says, leadership, this is actually a quote he likes from Simon Sinek. And this is on his website that just spoke to me. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Jake, come on up here. You're amazing. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm going to put your website right in the beginning. Jake Hammond, HAMANN.me. So people can get to know you, because I love the first thing about you is a disruptive innovator, and you just on the TEDx stage. So tell us what you went on the TEDx stage for and what prompted you to jump on that big red dot.
Yeah, big red dot it was. So thank you again for having me. So yeah, I fancy myself as a disruptive innovator. I've been in the corporate innovation space for a long time, and also, you know, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be innovative. So I really just shared my journey. Didn't dive into the details around the business side, but really around how I personally have embraced disruption. So it's kind of called, it was Embracing Disruption, the Art of Thriving Amidst Chaos and Change. So
I like that.
You kind of referred to it, you know, at the beginning.
Yeah, people need to learn that, because life happens. You're always, you know, going through something. And if you don't have the tools to get through it, you're always, you know, you can get more depressed thinking, why will I ever arrive? And it's not about that. So what is a disruptive innovator? Tell us a little bit about this disruption that you do and how it all relates to all of us.
Yeah. So, I mean, you hit it on the head. Just everybody goes through disruptive things in their life, right? Whether that's in business or in life. And that's kind of what I talked about, and really just applying this innovator's mindset to how you navigate things, whether that be in your work environment or whether that be in your personal environment. And one of the things I really kind of hit on was that it is important to navigate every step of the process that you go through. Everybody goes through those, like, you know, 5 stages of grief, those types of things. But at the end of the day, being able to look at those things that happen to you, those disruptions that happen, and be able to, you know, think of new ways of doing things, or be able to take inspiration from them and move forward to the next step.
Well, where you sit now, I know you've been through several disruptions that you just happened to mention before we even came on the air. What would you say was one of your hardest disruptions in your life? And can you give us some tips on how we can make it through similar obstacles as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, you hit on it in the intro too. So I was widowed in 2016. I was married for 14 years, had 2 kids. They're now 17 and 19. So that was certainly the biggest disruption I had. I was in the midst of growing a business, a consultancy that I had, and we were up to about 35 employees at that time. And, you know, over the 8-month period from the time that my wife received diagnosis to passing away, of course, everything was just turned completely upside down. You know, for me, and I think this kind of goes back to some of my tips and tricks just around how I built my business, is I had built an incredible team. You know, had some great leaders along with me, and we really built our business around culture. And by doing so, you know, my other business leaders were able to step in and take over when, you know, things got tough. So that was kind of a nice I guess, silver lining in the midst of everything that happened.
That's a really important point that you're making, because I deal a lot, especially with a lot of women in business. And many, many times us as women, we tend to be solopreneurs, and we tend to not want to spend the money on investing in things, not want to, well, I can do it, so I might as well do it. And we tend to want to do it all. I'm just big generalization right now. Men can do the same thing. But you made such a good point that when tragedy struck, you had a team in place in your business, so your business could run without you, which I think is so vital. Talk to us a little bit about, is that really important for every solopreneur not to be solo and to have that team, should the unthinkable happen, that the business can run without you, even if you're an entrepreneur? We're not talking corporate. And if you can give us some insights on how we can make changes to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we were intentional when we started the business around building the business with culture in mind. I set up, at the beginning, our leaders set up a session with our team, our small team of like 5 people, said, what do you want this company to be going forward? And of course, if people are implementing that now and they've been in existence for a while, it's still not a bad exercise or bad practice to have. And that became kind of how we hired people, how we did reviews, all those different types of things as we built the team. And that benefited us in the long run. A lot of the employees, we didn't expect them to stay there forever. It was kind of a stepping stone, and we wanted to encourage growth and advancement in their careers. But because of that openness and that transparency and building it around culture, we had a really solid team that, like you said, was able to kind of step in and take over and pick up the pieces when things got a little crazy.
What kind of business was it? Or is this your automotive business that you're doing now?
No, so this was a consultancy. I called it an innovation consultancy. We did a lot of work in the augmented reality, virtual reality space for some larger corporate clients. Yeah, so a newer environment. This is in 2012, right? So we're talking 11 years ago when that stuff was just coming out and starting to become popular. So
getting on the ground floor with that.
we were, and now it's fun. It's starting to catch on at a broader scale with Apple's introduction of some of their new hardware and things like that. But we've been doing it for about 12 years or so. So I'm actually stepping back into that space now and just launched a new innovation consultancy called Innovate, and we're doing some of the same work that I had done in the past. But my old company is still in existence. They continued on. They shifted and pivoted a little bit. So that's a source of pride too, that what I started back in 2012 is still going today and doing their thing.
And how does that relate to your new? I know you have this new venture of Automotive. So you're doing kind of AI in the automotive space, or are they not connected at all?
They are, but they aren't. So a lot of it comes from the background on the disruption side. This startup is actually part of a kind of a passion project of mine. I'm a Jeep enthusiast. I love Jeeps and modified cars.
Fun.
And I came, like any good startup or any good technology, it comes out of a need that somebody has personally experienced. And for me, that's buying a modified Jeep and not being able to get details on what the modifications were. And then the key thing is that we're trying to solve is when anybody that modifies a car, whether it's a Jeep or a truck or a tuner or an exotic car, when you go to sell that or insure it, you can't get a good value from it, or you can't properly determine the value because your traditional tools like Kelley Blue Book and some of those, they don't take into account modifications. So
interesting.
What's been a very manual and subjective process today done by appraisers. There's enough data out there today that we're using that data and artificial intelligence to determine the value of modified and specialty vehicles.
So is that ultimately what your new business will be doing, helping get, all those tools? So for those of us who do all that upgrading to the cars, we're able to get real value and Kelley Blue Book and all that, you integrating all that together?
Exactly. Yep. So we're building an algorithm and kind of a special secret sauce, if you will, that takes all these different factors into account, and essentially at the end of the day provides a value range for what those modified and specialty cars are worth.
I love that you're in this great business of you're an automotive and you're in AI and you've been, a business leader, done all these things, and you took the time to step onto a TEDx stage. I talk to people all the time that TEDx isn't just for Shonda Rhimes and, Steven Spielberg and all just the big, these big or Pulitzer Prize winners. They're for everyday people, because everyday people have great innovations and great ideas and great new ideas to share on same old topics. So I'm glad you did that. But before we get into a little bit more of your TEDx and what that was about, and I know everybody will be able to find you on YouTube. It's not even out yet. It's how new you are on the stage of TEDx, which is so much fun. You have one more list on your accomplishments before we get into your nonprofit and we start talking about cowboys. So don't go away, people. What is an ecosystem builder?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a term that's I don't know, picked up a little bit of prevalence and notoriety in the last 5 years or so. For me, how it started and what it is I love to help other entrepreneurs. I love to help other entrepreneurs and other communities support their entrepreneurs. So it's my way of, kind of giving back. I've started 2 nonprofits as a result, as an ecosystem builder. But I was introduced to this world as part of an organization called Startup America that was way back in, I think, Obama's first term that it began. And really, it was an organization that intended to support entrepreneurial ecosystems. So what that is all the support mechanisms that surround an entrepreneur. So funding, education, all those different types of tools and resources, meetups, all those different co-working spaces, all those different things that support an entrepreneur makes up the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I was able to get involved in that early and then took what I learned, that was going on kind of from a national stage, and then implemented that in a small community where I used to live. I used to live in the Peoria, Illinois area, so central Illinois, and helped implement that there in that region. And now I'm in the Dallas market and doing some of the same work here.
So you still are in that. That sounds great. It sounds like this one-stop shop for people that are starting up their own business, where you have access to all the things you need, which is so important, because when people go to be an entrepreneur, they've got the great idea, but they don't necessarily have the roadmap to bring it all into fruition with everything that they need. It's kind of like you find out what you need as you go, which is not the best way to do it, because you don't know what you don't know. So is that what you're saying? Anybody that has an idea and wants to start the business, they can tap into this ecosystem?
Exactly. So, and it does require a little bit of searching depending on where you are, but most mid to large size cities in the United States have some sort of, entrepreneurial ecosystem established, and there's certain, first inroads or the places to kind of get started. But it's exactly what you mentioned. It's that whole network of support resources, from, the business planning, business model canvas creation, to going to meetups and finding other people, to connecting you with legal people and accountants, that kind of stuff.
Perfect. All right. So, I'm in the Atlanta area. I work with people from all over the world now. It's been since the pandemic, and we've all gone like online. Yeah, I know people that, my clients in Australia, to the UK, to everywhere. But let's just say you're in the US and you're in one of the major cities or close enough to them. Where do you go on Google? So what do you search for to find these one-stop shops that are credible? Because again, there's a lot of uncredible people out there that want to take your money and give you the bad advice and take you down a rabbit hole. How do you find good, creditable one-stop shops for that business owner, that entrepreneur?
Absolutely. So I'll give a plug to one of the organizations I've been involved with for a long time, which is the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City. They're kind of the go-to de facto institution for entrepreneurship in the United States.
Say it again. What is it? The Kauffman?
It's Kauffman Foundation, Kauffman. And they have a program that they launched, I guess it's been about 15 years ago, called 1 Million Cups.
1 million
and
cups?
what 1 Million Cups, is a weekly gathering. I'm almost positive they have one in Atlanta, but almost every major city, even smaller cities, have them. But it's a weekly gathering of entrepreneurs, usually early stage. They get they pick 2 usually per week to get up and talk about their business for 6 minutes, and then take 20 minutes of feedback from the audience. And it's this incredible, it's not a pitch, it's an education opportunity for the entrepreneur to get their idea out there and get feedback from their peers. And in addition to that, it's the networking that happens there, right? It's the connection with service providers, the other entrepreneurs, all that kind of stuff. And it's usually I always say it's one of the best first steps into that entrepreneurial ecosystem in any community. So that's one that I recommend, I think they have chapters in over 100 cities now in the
That's
United
amazing.
States.
Is
So,
it
yeah,
reasonable? Because we're talking about startups. So is it a reasonable cost?
it doesn't cost anything.
Oh, it's a
So
reasonable cost.
even better, it's
Okay,
free.
it's free? Oh my gosh.
Yes, yes. So it's free to apply. It's free to present. There's community organizers that organize each chapter voluntarily. And most of the time, those community organizers are fantastic just about, connecting people to the right resources. That's kind of, I'm a connector. And
And I love
that's
that. I'll
what
do that
other
too.
people are connectors. Yep.
It kind of reminds me of SCORE. You ever heard of SCORE?
Yes, funny you mentioned that. So, SCORE, I've worked with closely. I actually just met the regional head of SCORE for the North Texas region the other day. They're very active here. So, yeah, they're part of that ecosystem, right? You have the entrepreneur in the center, and you have all these little bubbles that support them. SCORE is definitely a part of that.
For those who don't know what SCORE is, can you just describe SCORE for me? Because I know what it is, but you can probably explain it a little bit better.
Yeah,
These are all
so
great resources for entrepreneurs.
absolutely, and they've shifted their focus a little bit. It used to be, I think, the RE used to stand for retired executives. They've kind of switched that up a little bit, and really, it's
What is it
a
now?
resource of mentors and coaches, if you will, that can help somebody regardless of what stage they're in. And each person, I believe, each one of them kind of has their areas of expertise identified. So if you need help with marketing or branding or finance or whatever it might be, they have resources that can help and guide you down those different paths.
And it's another free resource because you said RE, retired executives. What does the RE stand for now into SCORE?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. He just told me the other day and I completely forgot.
They're probably on the same lines. If anybody's wondering, it's people that are either retired or maybe semi-retired or are able to give back free advice because they don't need to charge you for it. They're either retired or they've already made their, great income. They're ready now to just give back freely and willingly, which is so great because I want to do that as well. I've always wanted to when time is right, which is, so I'm coming up to that, would like to give of my expertise and do something that way for free just to help and to give back. And then there's also always more that we need to learn because I believe school is never out for the pro. There's people that I could tap into to get advice because I'm not a master at every topic in the world. God knows I'm not. I've got my wheelhouse I'd love to freely give back to, but then there's other topics I would love to learn more from. And it's nice to be able to have that free community where you're not always paying for just wisdom. It's like having a good book, but in real life. You get the author of a really great finance book or of real estate or something. You can just talk to that person that's ahead of you in something. You just like to get information. You may not even want to be in that business, but you'd like to gather some knowledge. So I think it's incredible. Absolutely. What a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I love that your ecosystem is kind of like a brother sisterhood of that. So that's cool. So Kauffman Foundation and 1 Million Cups. Love that.
Yes.
Now, with that, you have started or you're participating in actively into 2 nonprofits. Let's talk about the one that really captured my attention, which is the Cowboy Foundation, because I love everything to do with horses and people who love horses, and that whole community. We used to have a horse, and just farms and anything to do with that lifestyle. Tell us what you do and who you do it for, and is this your nonprofit?
So the first one, is the Cowboy Entrepreneur Foundation, and that one is the result of a gentleman named Scott Knudsen. He's known as the Cowboy Entrepreneur, pretty well known in the Western world. And I was just recently really excited and honored to join that board. And what we're really doing in our mission, I'll just read it because I have it kind of here in front of me. It's to educate.
Yeah, and then tell us what a Cowboy Entrepreneur is too.
So Scott, he actually survived a lightning strike, and he was holding his daughter, and they're in the midst of actually working on a movie about his experience and everything that he's gone through. So that'll be called Lightning Cowboy. Is the name of that, and he's got some books and stuff out there, and is, like I said, really well known in the Western world. One of the nicest guys, one of the greatest families I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Nice. So, he's just taking his message and what he's been about, and to your point, and what you do at the pocket, giving back. So our goal with this foundation is, just like I said, I'll read that: educate, promote, and support horsemanship and the Western lifestyle is a therapeutic and healing option for the wider community, particularly for those that might be in need. So I know specifically we're working on an event coming up in December out in Vegas. And really the proceeds from that are going to support some of these cowboys that have been injured or unfortunately tragically been killed in some of these like rodeo accidents, to support their families and whatever injuries they may have sustained in their time of need. So it's really, I mean, it's a beautiful mission from my perspective to be able to give back in that way. And, from Scott's perspective of being an entrepreneur, going through a tragic situation, it just really, it really resonated with me when I got involved and learned more about, what the intent was in this organization. So definitely honored to be part of that. And we're just getting that off the ground. But there'll be lots of information coming about that.
Oh, great. I'm going to put your website up too, so make sure it's all on your website, jakehammond.me. When you say Cowboy Entrepreneur, is it also, and I love that they're helping them because their business is rodeo and Western lifestyle and cattle ranching, all the things that us city girls are like, we don't even know half the stuff they do, but I love it. I'm intrigued by it and love animals. And that's the life I would love to have, just on a ranch and have my llama farms and animals. But are they also, we know they're business owners, but tell me a little bit about the entrepreneurship of a cowboy. Are they all in the industry? Like, is rodeo their business, or do they run other businesses that you can also help them with, like we're talking about Score and Ecosystem Builder? Do they have other businesses on the side, and rodeo and Western lifestyle is their hobby or just their lifestyle, but their business is something else?
Yes and no. So, I mean, and Scott does a lot of stuff, particularly just, for him and his career, and does a lot of speaking engagements. But I'll say one of our board members is the founder or not founder, but CEO of American Hat Company, the biggest cowboy hat company in the United States.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, their stuff, it's in the entrepreneurial, business owner, type of environment. So we're kind of bringing that perspective, to the table. And it's really interesting too, as you get a nonprofit off the ground, the steps of doing that are very similar to getting a business started. It's obviously got some caveats of being a nonprofit, and that has its own flavor, but having all entrepreneurs of sorts helps, contribute to the process and getting this thing off the ground.
I've heard, because I've helped a lot of nonprofits, because I'm a charity auctioneer. I shouldn't be able to talk. I have no vocal cord nerve on the lleft side, and they told me never speak again above a whisper. And after that, I become a charity auctioneer by accident, but I know it was God's on purpose, right? But I love charities, and I love my whole television show, and everything I did with these awards was spotlighting nonprofits, which have my heart. And so I love that you're doing this for the nonprofit. So with the nonprofit, like you mentioned, Scott, in speaking, would it be something maybe Scott and some other of them in this world would consider doing a TEDx? Because I know their stories must be amazing. Their outlook on life would be, TED, and the TED stage is all about sharing of ideas. If you look at their mantra and their mission statement, it's sharing of ideas. And I'm sure they've got a lot to share. So do you all see that in that lifestyle? Or could you be like the torchbearer to say, hey guys, you also should don the TEDx stage?
Oh, I totally agree. I think there's lots of stories in that realm and in that world that could be told, and it's a different perspective, right? That some people may not have any exposure to, but getting somebody on that stage sharing their story, there undoubtedly will be parallels that exist between that Western world and what's going on in the city world. So yeah, definitely the torchbearer. I like that, and I think that's going to be my job now. How do we, continue to share this? And it'll happen as we get into December and do some of these other events of getting the word out, sharing the stories, and getting some people into, to kind of share their experiences.
Well, I'm so glad. So it's the Cowboy Entrepreneur Foundation. We'll put that up. We'll put that in the descriptions. Also, it's at jakehammond.me. Let me know how I can support that. It sounds fabulous. I love support. Good people doing great things. And, I've been to the rodeo a couple of times, and I find a rodeo kind of hard to watch because, wrangling the calves and pulling them on the ground and do all that. And then I look at the cowboys like, oh my gosh, where are their mothers? They're on these bulls and they're just flying off. I'm like, oh my gosh, my heart can't take it. But I love the barrel racing, so I can handle that. But I always wondered, my gosh, they fall off. Do they ever get stomped on? Do they ever get hurt? And or do they, God forbid, they ever get killed or whatever? It's just too much stress for me to watch all these young boys and just doing all that. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I know it's a lifestyle. So I'm so glad you have a foundation now that helps it, because it's a lifestyle. It's passed down generation after generation, and it's what they do. And I know the moms that are in this, I mean, they've got the strongest hearts in the world. And I just, want to be there for them. So thank you for starting that. I think it's great. I'd never heard about a foundation that does support that community. So do encourage them too, because I know there's a lot of books to be written, a lot of speakers in that community that could get up and speak, because they have a life that would have a lot of great expertise to share, because you don't just jump on a bull or jump on a horse one day and just wing it. There's strategies, there's training, there's a mindset, there's so much to go. There's bravery, men and women doing this. I mean, even to look at the clowns. I used to be a professional white-faced clown, and I look at those clowns that are jumping the barrels, so they're the ones having to wave and say, "Come here, bull." And I'm like, what a job to do. So there's books and there's speeches and there's people I would want to talk to share their stories about why the heck are you in that ring? And tell us lessons you learned. Lessons to learn.
Certainly not something for me.
Yeah, right. Lessons to learn from the ring, from the rodeo. Life is a highway. We've got that song. How about life is a rodeo? Now we need that. All right. Well, now on a more, even another serious note as well. That's not the only nonprofit you are a part of as well. You were telling me before we started a little bit about an eating disorder. Tell us about that and who you help in that world, because that's another hot topic right now for girls, but also for boys.
Yeah, so it was a big part of my TED Talk, was just around my struggle with food addiction and obesity. So, and especially trying to bring light to it from a male perspective, kind of to your point, is men don't like to talk about it. They don't talk about it much.
That's why we think it's not a problem. We don't think of it as a guy problem, probably because guys don't talk about it, and women we do.
Yep. I'm going to pause here for a second, just because I need to shut my blind because I'm getting a glare on me now. There we go. Much better. So, so just in terms of the food addiction and eating disorder. So as I mentioned in my TED Talk, my coping mechanism was food, right? From as long as I can remember, from when I was young, is that I ate when I was happy, I ate when I was sad. You eat to celebrate, you ate to grieve. And it's just kind of, it goes like this, right? And until I made the decision to have surgery about 3 years ago to get it under control. And it was not easy. I think people think that that's the easy way out. It is not the easy way out. It is super difficult. And I think for me, until I identified the root cause of why I got that way, that's especially not discussed in the realm of, food addiction and weight loss and obesity and those types of things. So through my TED Talk, I'm trying to bring some awareness to that, as to how it happened and what I've done in order to, to overcome that. And I think a lot of it was a wake-up call for me when I became a single dad. When I had my kids and I needed to be around for them, I realized I couldn't keep carrying around, 150 excess pounds and, be around for them and be there to support them and be able to raise them. So, yeah, it's been quite the journey. Like I said, I've had bariatric, I had skin removal surgery, and just now, that was 2 years ago that I had the skin removal, finally starting to feel confident in my own skin. And it's, battling that whole perception and feeling confident and all that type of stuff. So been quite the journey, but I do love to, like I said, go out, share, be able to talk about that. Because I think as I went through that process, I think there was maybe 30 minutes that was dedicated to the mental health side of it and the root cause of the addiction. And 30 minutes is certainly not enough from a lifetime of, of cope or dealing with that. So
it is a lifelong, and as women, we know, I used to be, I still am in the show business world, but I mean, I was brought up in New York City. It's all about, how smart you are, what school you go to, how talented you are, and how thin you are. And it's just, you get brought up like this, and it's such a mental, we realize it more now, which I'm so glad. In this day and age, back when I was in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was just Twiggy all the way, and everybody else felt like aliens, like we were just not good enough, and your nose is too big. There's just all the things that you're not the right little Barbie doll type of, body image. Anything other than that, forget it. And it's interesting to see guys can have the same problems as well. And plus you want to live longer. So it's not about being a size 0 anymore now. I'm so glad. It's about living longer, being healthy, having those healthy stats when you see your doctor, so you can live a long life for your children and your grandchildren, great grandchildren. So you look fantastic now. So can you give us a couple of tips? Because I think it's such an important topic from a man's point of view. Give us some of the tips that are helping you through, because it's not something, okay, just get the surgery, the skin removal, you'll be good now. Yeah, you cheated. You know, that's all. It's not. I've known people have gone through it, and it's a daily still, because you could reverse that at any moment from what I've heard, that, you know, you're back to bed. Back to square one.
Yeah, and I encountered that, you know, during leading up to the surgery of, you know, some people that were coming in for prep that had it before, and they were right back in the same place, you know, 10 or 15 years later. And I think just from a tips and tricks perspective, it goes back to that identifying, you know, the root cause and having that healthy relationship with food. You know, granted, the surgery does things physically that prevent you from eating too much, you know, in certain cases. But to your point, you can, I say, outgrow that, but you can reverse that. And until you really address the mental side of it, it still lingers there. So yeah, I just have to keep reminding myself of that, and healthy habits and those types of things. I've found, I mean, from a actual use case, I've done the intermittent fasting side of things, which works really well for me.
Which is what? Which is not eating until 12 noon? Is that intermittent fasting?
Yeah, it's like a 14 hour type of fast, or 16 hour, you know, fast, 8 hours of eating type of thing, which has worked pretty well. And then I would say the biggest thing for me, and I think for anybody, is the therapy side, right? Of going and talking to somebody else. And through my whole journey of, you know, being a widow and the weight loss and everything, having a therapist and somebody to go talk to has been critical. And I'll throw a quick anecdote in here. I was lucky enough, I went to a music festival this weekend in Vegas and saw one of my favorite bands, Imagine Dragons, and the lead singer, Dan Reynolds. You know, he got up on stage, and what a platform and podium to have to be able to do that. But one of his key messages to the audience was the power of therapy, of being able to have somebody to go talk to, that your life is worth living, that, you know, if you're ever going through anything, like, there's somebody out there that you can go talk to. So for me, like I said, throughout everything, always having that voice and somebody to share stuff with, that's a neutral third party, right? That's not a spouse, it's not a parent, it's not a child, whatever. Having that has just been super important.
Do you feel that since the pandemic, that it's become so much more mainstream to be okay with getting help from no matter what your mental issues are? Because I think we all have mental issues. I think therapy could be such a good thing that it's not so stigmatized anymore. Like, you have to be crazy to get help. Now it's like life is full of weak moments and moments where we need to reach out. It's full. I think it takes a village to raise people, to raise humans, not just children. And the older I get, the more I realize we can't do this alone. We shouldn't just have a therapist if we're going through something that is trauma, that having it throughout your life for whatever, we're always going to go through something. So what say you about, has it been more mainstream since the pandemic? Has it come out more as part of more acceptable, people talking about it more? Or has it just been coming out more since, I don't know, last decade?
No, I think the pandemic certainly brought a lot of it to light and destigmatized it a little bit. I still think there's I don't know what the right word is, but for men, there's a taboo-ness to it, right? That men specifically don't want to talk about it for being, you know, they want to
be strong and not ask for directions.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So, and there's certainly nothing soft about it, and it's an important thing. So, while yes, I think that the pandemic brought it to light, you know, more insurance companies are covering it now. It's become more mainstream. There's, you know, there's mental health, you know, and even like, I know my insurance carrier during the pandemic started offering mental health services for free. Like, there was no deductible, there was no copay, whatever it might be. So it's starting to continue to become more prevalent.
Continue that. I mean, why just during the pandemic? I mean, they think people don't have PTSD for decades to come after the pandemic. You know, they'd be wrong.
Yeah.
So it affected everybody in some way.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming more accepted too for youth, which is which is really good. You know, my daughter and my son, my 17 and 19-year-old, their schools have, you know, mental health days where you can take a mental health day if something's, you know, stressing out, those types of things. So
Nice.
yeah, so I think
What
it's
a
starting
great
to,
idea.
yeah.
I'm so glad. And you're in where? You're in the Dallas Fort Worth area?
So I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth. So like I said, I lived in Peoria, Illinois, so central Illinois for most of my life. I moved down here to the Dallas area permanently about 2 years ago. So I've been here in Frisco specifically, so home of the Dallas Cowboys.
I love,
So
yes.
there's that cowboy tie-in again.
There you go. There you go. And I love the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, I'm in Atlanta. I got Falcons and Georgia
Oh
Bulldogs
yes.
and all this stuff. But I'm from New York City originally. You got the Jets and all the
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
But I spent a lot of time in Dallas because I did Mary Kay for 20 years. So I
Yep.
have been to Dallas like 100 times. It's like a second
Yep.
home to me. And I love my Cowboys and I love the people of Dallas. They have such great, well, again, I'm making a big generalization, but I've never seen such manners as when I would go from New York to visiting Dallas. And just the door opening, the old fashioned, just people being hospitable. I don't know if it's Southern hospitality or if it's Dallas hospitality, but I've always met the nicest people in Dallas. And I really, really, when I got to Mary Kay, was so glad it was out of Dallas because I had to go there like twice a year and just loved every bit of it. So it's a great, great place.
Yeah. No, it's a great place. I love it here. There's lots of opportunity here. That's partly why I chose this area. There's just tons and tons and tons of
And
opportunity.
everything's bigger in the big D.
True. It's true. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's
Yeah.
go back to talking about, I know on your website you talk about being a leader. So, and I did that quote in the beginning. So as we're kind of wrapping up now, I could talk to you for such a long time about so many different things. Have you back on. We'll talk about other stuff. But definitely check out his TEDx. So look up Jake Hammond. Jake Hammond. I got Jake Kauffman on my mind. Kauffman Foundation. Jake Hammond. TEDx on YouTube. You'll find him really soon. And if you go to his website, which I'll put up, he'll have the link right there, jakehammond.me. It'll come up as soon as he has it. But your quote, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Tell us a little bit about what it means to be a leader, because I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up the show. So many people that watch this are entrepreneurs. They're in charge. They're leaders in their own right, whether they're leading a community or a nonprofit. Tell us a little about your thoughts on leadership and how to be a better leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a big subscriber to, you mentioned him earlier with the quote, Simon Sinek for a long time. He's one of my favorite I'd say business mentors. I've never met him personally, would love to at some point, but just his approach and view to leadership has been incredible. And it, you know, even the titles of his books, right? Leaders Eat Last, you know, Start with Why, like they're just his titles on his book alone are great, but you dive into those and they're fantastic. You know, one of the key things, and it kind of goes along to that quote, I think some of the stuff that I've embraced is just been naturally from being how I was raised. My dad was a leader. He was a fire chief. He was always in charge, you know, kind of seeing that growing up. So it was kind of instilled in me. But I think for other leaders, just continuing to educate yourself. And, you know, you always talk about the difference between a leader and a manager, right? Of you lead people or you manage people. And, you know, leaders are the ones that the people will line up behind them. Right. And with managers, right, they want to be in the front and leading the charge, right? The leaders will be in the back and kind of pushing everybody forward. So one of the key things, my characteristics that I did an assessment, and I think this is great for anybody to do if they haven't done it, is a leader, is the Clifton Strengths Finders, which is a great survey kind of tool for your team. And it identifies what are your top, as an individual, what are your top 5 strengths that you possess as a human? For me, my number one was discipline, which ironically didn't carry over into my exercise and health side, but on the business side, it did. It worked well. And the second one that I really, you know, take pride in was individualization. And what that means is essentially allowing people to function within the areas that they're good at. Of not being a micromanager. And if you've identified somebody and hired somebody for a specific reason, you know, because of a specific skill set, loosen the reins a little bit and let them operate within what they're good at. And that's, I guess, what I identified as a strength is bringing people in, introducing them to the team, and then kind of letting them go. or not letting them go, but letting them be free to do their
Yeah.
thing. So,
Like you said, don't micromanage them. You hire them because they're good at something. Let them be good at something.
yep,
Oversee
exactly.
and not micromanage.
Yep. So that whole exercise of the Strengths Finder is great for teams in general. Of they provide some tools, and this is not paid promotion from Clifton Strengths Finders, but it's a great tool. Is everybody does their own individual assessment. They offer tools to look at as a team, what do you have collectively, and then it actually kind of prescribes how do you work best with each other in the different skill sets. And there's 36 different skill sets that everybody has, everything from discipline to strategic to innovator to woo. There's even people that have a strong woo
factor. I love it.
Yeah.
Is that something online? Is it Clifton Strength Finders that people find that online?
Absolutely. Yeah. Is it
like
a
Colby?
pretty I'm not sure. Maybe.
Colby test is like a personality test, but it tells you what your details are in different situations. It's a little bit better than like the DISC or what's the other one? The Braggs, really popular one. I can't remember.
There's a bunch of different flavors of it for sure.
There is. But this one sounds really good that I want to encourage the younger people to also to, like in high school and college, to really find their strengths. Because if I could go back and do something different, I would love to taking these tests back in the day to find what your real strengths are. And this is Clifton Strength Finders. And I think even if the young people do this, so they don't come out of college or high school, whatever, thinking they've got to do one thing when their skill set might be really in something else, and they can really embrace that and run with it. And I think that would be smart. It reminds me of the John Maxwell story that he used to tell us about trying to teach the rabbit how to swim and the rabbit how to swim and the eagle how to run, and do what you do best and let them do it. Let the eagle, the owls fly, let the fish swim, let the bunny run. Stop trying to make them good at something they're not meant to do. In a nutshell, that's the story.
So, I like those. I like those metaphors. Yeah. So the one other thing,
all this time teaching them what they're doing, giving them, like in grades, giving them all the bad grades or stuff they're terrible at, then making them spend more time at it to really get good at stuff you're just not naturally good at. When if you spent more time really accelerating what you're already good at and become excellent, it just makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And it's hard in getting started as an entrepreneur or a small firm or small business. Like, you got to wear lots of hats for sure. I think one of the key things I identified early on was, what is the least value add thing that I'm doing, and how can I outsource that or find somebody else to work on that, so that I can focus on your point, what's most important and what am I the best at. So and then the second thing kind of relates to what I talked about early on of building my company, was the culture side. And we found a platform early on, and the importance of this to my company and how I'm building other companies is measuring not measuring, but your employees on both a culture fit and a performance fit. So this platform we used allowed us to put our core values into this platform. And when people we didn't do performance reviews. It was just a quarterly or biannually, just to get together and kind of discuss how things were going. And it was looking at, how are you as a culture fit with the company, right? Do you subscribe to the values that we've established as a business? Are you living those values? And then in parallel, are you performing your job? But if you think about that, you put those four things in a quadrant of, the top right is good culture fit, good performer. Like, those are the types of employees that almost everybody should fit in that. If you have somebody in the next one that's, a good culture fit and maybe not a great performer, they can be trained, right? They can be brought up, they can be taught, all those different types. They can excel, right? And then, down here, that's maybe a good performer and not a great culture fit. That's somewhat hard to fix that, right? And then the bottom right, you don't ever want to hire those people in the first place, right? You need to get rid of that are low performers and bad culture fit. Like, you shouldn't even be hiring those. But this platform helped us essentially establish both, interview questions. So when you're hiring somebody, how do you hire them based on culture fit as well as performance? Because if you think about your traditional job description, do you really include those things in there around, you subscribe to these values as a person? and being able to kind of ask and frame some of those interview questions that way. So something that was super valuable for me is that as we built the team, I think that, like I said, allowed us to grow from 2 to 35 people in just a couple of years. And we had really solid, great performing people as we went through that process.
When I used to do my Live Your Legacy Summits at the Hilton right before the pandemic shut us down, I had done 12 Live Your Legacy Summits. Always did them at the Hilton, whether I did them in Florida, but mostly in the Atlanta area. They were great to me. I loved them. And I was having a side conversation with one of the managers one day, and she happened to be talking about they're in the midst of hiring. I think it was like 2019 or 2018. And I said, what do you look for when you mean you're hiring? Who are you hiring for? What are you hiring for? They said, they started having this wonderful conversation with me about the Hilton's platform and how they hire people. And the biggest platform is when they need to hire somebody that's going to deal with people, whether it's the front desk or whether it's any kind of position that's going to deal with the guests. The number one qualification is that they are good with people, have a positive attitude, a great smile. As far as they don't have perfect teeth, but they smile, it comes naturally, because they said they can teach them the skills they need to do a job, but they can't teach them hospitality and personality and be naturally that person of hospitality that really loves being with people. So even in the most frustrating moments when everything is piling up, their biggest quality they look for is people that can handle stress and still loves being with the public. So they look for that quality first of personality, then they know they can teach them how to use the computers secondary. So do you think that's kind of like the same thing you're talking about?
No, absolutely. So yeah, the attitude and the culture fit and the personality that's the important thing.
Yeah, they're not doing IT. If they're just doing IT, then it doesn't matter. But the people that are going to deal with the guests, that was top priority. They need people first. They can teach them the rest of the qualifications, the rest of the job later. Absolutely. I thought that was really, really neat. Okay, that makes sense, because you can't teach personality. You can fake it for a while. But,
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. All right, Jake, I could touch you forever. As we wrap up, I'm going to give you the last words. What would you like the viewers most to know as we're wrapping up? You do TED Talks, you do, you're a disruptor, you're an accomplished entrepreneur. We've talked about going to get your strengths, I love your Clifton Strength Finders, which is great, your Kauffman Foundation, the Cowboy Entrepreneur Foundation, so much good stuff in this conversation. Jake, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you the question I love to ask my guest, because I think it's really important that we live our life on purpose. And you're definitely doing that. You've been through some ups, some downs, and some wonderful, great highs. You've got your 2 wonderful kids that are just there by your side as well. At the end of the day, Jake, how do you want to be remembered? What are you hoping your legacy will be right now? I know you've got a whole bunch more life to live. But right now, how are you hoping that you're living that legacy right now?
Yeah. So I think it's right on my webpage of my website. But my purpose at the end of the day is to better people's lives. I feel like when I'm fulfilled when other people are fulfilled. And whether that's, through serving, others through the community, through the businesses I'm doing, whatever it might be, I really like to connect and to solve problems. So compelled to make a difference and ultimately make an impact and, better other people's lives. Like I've been blessed and had some incredible opportunities throughout my life. I've been through a lot and navigated that, but I've been blessed with some just things I would have never imagined, especially over these last 5 years, even these last 2 years. And I've always felt like, my goal is really just to give back and however else I can help. So I'm planning to continue to do that. I think I've seen the benefits of that and everything that's been, come my way, because that's been kind of my mindset and how I approach things. So yeah, that's that's me in a nutshell.
You're doing just that. I cannot wait to see your TED Talk. So excited for you to be on TED. You can find mine under Aurea McGarry on YouTube as well under TEDx. Mine was living a big legacy life. So of course, under any circumstances. So, us TED speakers, we have that one thing in common. We really want to make the world a better place. Just, one stage at a time, one moment at a time, and one experience at a time. So thank you for being such a great testimonial for everything that you do, from from the eating to the being a widow to having your kids, being a great dad, being an entrepreneur. You're doing it all, and you're showing us it does take a village. So we all need to just connect with each other in any way you see to connect and help. So I want to really help with your Cowboy Entrepreneur Foundation too. Let's stay connected. Anything I can do to help with foundations and charities, I love to do that. So don't hesitate to reach out to me for that.
I appreciate that.
I love it. I love it. Jake, thank you so much for being here on Get Celebritized. You're wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right,
everybody.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Until next time, we'll Get Celebritized. Go out there and earn more, live more, live. So, and also give back more. Thank you, Jake, for being a perfect guest on the show. Thank you all. Till next time. Bye.